School, 34 Pomeroy Meadow Road in Southampton. And this evening, I'll be the moderator for this session, and I'll be reading the motions under the articles and teamwork. Those who may sit up here or may be in the audience will be sharing information. This is not to be a pro and con. That's saved for Tuesday, so we'll really limit that. And we'll start. Article 1, Payment in lieu of taxes contract. Move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into contractual payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement with CG Southampton Energy Development, LLC, for a proposed approximate 2 megawatt capacity commercial solar energy project to be sited on leased farmland located at 41 Valley Road.
Oh, sorry. Heather Bridger's Town Administrator. So I don't have a lot of information to offer on this article, but essentially the purpose of it is to provide for the ability for the Select Board to negotiate and enter into one of these contractual pilot agreements with the company listed CG Southampton Energy Development, LLC. On the evening of special town meeting, we should have our consultant, Roy Bishop, present with us, who should be able to answer additional questions on this piece. This is something that's happening with a lot of the solar projects throughout the state. It's very customary. They're still working on the amounts and the numbers and so forth, so we don't have those exact figures at this point because there's no agreement that currently has been reached. But on Tuesday night, if there's any additional questions and to further explain this, Roy Bishop will be present.
Thank you. And by the way, this is being broadcast live and it will be rebroadcast throughout the weekend. So this is Thursday evening. Article 2, Contract for Uniforms. Move the town vote to allow the Select Board to enter into a 5-year contract to provide uniforms to the Highway Department.
So I'm back up here again. Contracting for uniforms, what this essentially is currently based on Mass General laws and so forth, the town can only contract or enter into a contract for up to the amount of 3 years. So to go beyond that, you generally have to customarily come back to special town meeting or town meeting to ask for permission to have a longer contract. This is what this article does. One of the current companies we were looking at for uniforms for the Highway Department offered a better deal at a 60-month contract over a 36-month contract, and we'd like to be able to explore that option and enter into it.
Thank you. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Just raise your hand. And Article 3, Lease Zipta Farmland. Move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into a 10-year lease with Robert Fletcher for the Zipta farmland for the use and maintenance of the Zipta Conservation Farm located at Glendale Road.
The lease for the Zipta farmland with the Fletchers has been ongoing for approximately 20 years. At this time, they enter into a new lease agreement every 3rd January, so it's a 3-year lease currently. The ability to have a 10-year lease would allow everyone to be invested for a longer period of time at any given moment.
Thank you. Article 4, Water Hydrant Bylaw. Move the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Southampton by adding section 39 fire hydrant use as written below. No persons shall willfully open or tamper with any fire hydrant to cause damage and or to allow water to flow on any public or private property in the town of Southampton unless previously authorized to do so by the water department or fire chief. Each unauthorized opening, tampering of a hydrant shall constitute a separate offense. Penalty shall not exceed $200 per offense.
So what this is the new bylaw proposed by the Water Department. There's been a lot of concern lately, and we've had issues in the past where people have had unauthorized use of the water hydrants in town. This is something that's standard, a lot of communities do. It simply allows the ability for not only just saying that you shouldn't be doing this, but actually a bylaw that says you cannot access a fire or a water or hydrant rather without prior authorization from someone in charge.
Right.
And the water department should be present that evening in order to answer any questions.
Thank you. Article 5, non-criminal ticketing bylaw. Move the town vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Southampton by addition section 50, what is that? XL 50?
Oh, I think it's
I used to-
49.
49, I used to know. Non-criminal ticketing.
39 and something. I don't know. I have to, hold on one second. We can look that up for you.
Come up with L's too often.
Yeah, I still don't know. We'll figure it out. Please keep going.
Okay. Article 6, transfer undesignated reserved. Move the town vote to transfer the amount of $37,776 to the Greenway Committee to fund the legal, engineering, and other costs relative to the acquisition of the Greenway project. Said sum shall be taken from the Community Preservation Surcharges undesignated account. Virginia?
Virginia Ahart, Chair of Community Preservation. When the Greenway was required to return the grant they had received from the state, their operating money for them to continue to work was contingent on them having that grant. So they had no more money. That what was left in that account had to be returned to the community preservation. This will give them some operating money so that they can continue to work on acquiring that piece, whether it's legal fees or I think there might be the need for a new appraisal, things like that, which they would have absolutely no money to work with under the fact that they had to return the grant, which the community preservation grant was based on the state grant.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Thank you. Two more. Transfer Historic Preservation, Article 7. Move the town vote to transfer the amount of $8,400 to the Historic Commission to fund the restoration of the town clock. Said sum shall be taken from the Community Preservation Historic Preservation account.
Well, if you've noticed, the town clock hasn't been working, and in fact, the north-facing hand hasn't even been there. The hands were wooden, are wooden, and that one was badly damaged by weather. We have a town resident who is interested in clocks and able to work on them, and so he is in the process of getting the materials. The clock will be electrified, so no one will have to go up, as Herm Andrews used to, up and wind it every week. And as I am told, it's going to ring the hour during the daytime, but it won't do that at night to keep the townspeople from waking up.
Okay.
But it's
Midnight
mainly
rings.
to get the town, it is the town clock, even though it's housed in the church
Good point.
steeple.
Good point. Thank you. Article 8, transfer open space recreation. Move the town vote to transfer the amount of $1,000 to fund a wildlife interpretive sign in memory of Edward Need Jr. to be placed at the Zipta Farm Conservation Area featuring wildlife photographs taken by the late Edward Need Jr. Said sum shall be taken from the Community Preservation Open Space Recreation account.
This is the part of the Zipka farm that is open for hiking, and there are trails on that. And other people, including our moderator, were much more knowledgeable about the work that Edward Need Jr. did with his photography and wildlife. And this is a way to honor his memory. It's a metal sign, and it will have on it, it's a process by which they'll be very carefully preserved, some of his photos of the wildlife that you might be seeing as you walk one of the trails.
Great. Thank you. Article 9, transfer. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $8,258.22 to the workers' comp line. Said sum shall be taken from the insurance general line. And that Roman numeral was 40.
Yes, yes. Marla was kind enough to look that up for us. We don't see Roman numerals often, but unfortunately, that's the way our bylaws were set up from the beginning, so it's entertaining.
That L50, an X in front of L is a rare one. Not too many 40s around.
All right, so this one right here, this is just mostly a housekeeping item to transfer the funds from the insurance general line to the workers' comp line. Every year, we seem to not get the balance of these two numbers right. The sum seems to be fine, but the split between the two is never, can never seem to be predicted at the right amount, so this simply cleans up the line so there's no longer a negative in the workman's comp side.
Thank you. Article 10, transfer. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $37,900 to the EMT standby line, and sum shall be taken from the ambulance receipts reserve for appropriation.
So at the end of fiscal year 16, we actually had our EMT standby line being paid at $100 per person per on-call evening. And we always staffed it with 2 people. When we switched back to FY17, the plan was to reduce it back down to $50. Therefore, our initial budget at the beginning, planning for FY17, would have covered, the $37,900 would have covered an annual basis for 2 EMTs at the rate of $50 each for on-call. The decision of the select board and the fire department was to increase that back to the $100 to retain coverage. In doing so, it meant that once we got into FY17, we were going to be behind the ball because the $37,900 runs out halfway through the year in December. So the purpose here is to replenish the line and essentially fund it out what the revised intent was, which was to put people at $100 on call per day times 2 people. And the funds are going to come from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation. And last we checked, the balance when the warrant was published was about $64,000 and some change.
Thank you. Article 11, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $1,500 to the photocopier lease and supplies line. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So at the beginning of the year, we funded this line item at $3,000, or at least we did at annual town meeting. Between annual town meeting and the fiscal year start, we actually had finished negotiating a contract for a new photocopier. The new photocopier also meant that we had to pay out the old lease that was still on the books but was no longer working for us. In doing so, we had to negotiate that into the contract, bringing the amount up higher than we had even anticipated. Based on those numbers, possible overage, which we've been seeing for the past couple months, getting used to the new copier, having other copiers in town hall not work, that this one becomes the primary one for everybody. And also, just the cost of paper itself, based on an annual basis, puts us at about $1,500 over what we had originally guesstimated. This was also a line that for a long time was combined with the police department's photocopier and paper line, so we split things up. And when we do that, we're not always positive and sure of our numbers, what they're going to break down to. So this brings us to a good number, I think, that would be able to get through the rest of the year. So $1,500 onto the $3,000 would bring that line item up to a $4,500 annual basis.
Great, thank you. And the motion under Article 11 will require a 2/3 vote Tuesday night. Article 12, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $5,000 to create a new Select Board consultant line. Said sums shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So this is for the purpose of creating a new account line that does not currently exist for the purposes of allowing the Select Board to enlist the assistance of a consultant in hiring process, in this case for the town administrator. It may be used for other things in the future if they need it, but that's the major purpose for putting this before the town at this point. And the Select Board can address this item further on Tuesday night if there's additional questions.
Okay. The motion under Article 12 will also require a two-thirds vote Tuesday. Article 13, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $3,200 to the police chief's salary line. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So Select Board had negotiated a contract with the police chief, subject to appropriation in the amount of $95,000. The budget we had originally funded was $91,800, which was a 2% increase from the original $90,000 that was in the line. Moving forward into FY17, when the change was negotiated with the police chief and the Select Board, it became a need to add additional funding to the line. On Tuesday evening, if the additional funds are added to the line by having a vote in favor for this article, then at that point, the Select Board would move forward with doing a personal change form and submitting it to all relative bodies for approval before the change can be made.
Okay, thank you. And this motion also requires a two-thirds vote Tuesday under Article 13. Article 14, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $15,104 to the building commissioner salary line. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So the building commissioner, since he's been employed with the town, has been consistently working over 40 hours a week, whether he comes in on holidays, weekends, or evenings, or early in the morning. He was only originally employed at 31 hours per week at a salary rate. So he did not get any additional funding or any additional salary or compensation when he exceeded the 31 hours. But looking and reviewing the department, the Select Board has met with him and has asked that we increase his hours from 31 hours a week to what he's actually working at 40 hours a week. And to compensate, take his current rate of pay when you break down the 31 hours, which is currently $32.15 an hour, add an additional 9 hours per week. That would bring him up to 40 hours, and that would total the position out at $67,123 per year.
Good, thank you. And this motion also under Article 14, Tuesday night, will require two-thirds vote. Article 15, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town to transfer the sum of $5,608 to the town accountant's salary line. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So the Select Board met with the town accountant and reviewed the salary and believed that she should be receiving a higher rate of pay than what she currently is, and they negotiated, subject again to appropriation, a $3.58 per hour increase for the 30 hours per week that the town accountant works. The increase would make the salary line at $44,393.
Okay, thank you. The motion under Article 15 will also require a two-thirds vote Tuesday evening. Article 16, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $6,656 to the police administrative wage line. Said sums shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
This article is for the creation of a new line. The new line would be for a police department administrative assistant. Currently, there's no administrative support at the police department. The Select Board has had numerous conversations with both the police chief and the fire chief in the past, and this was originally a goal for the budget last year. At this point, they feel it's necessary to ask the town to fund a position for the second half of the year from January 1st to June 30th. At the regular rate of pay that we've generally been paying administrative assistants, which is around a little less than $16 per hour at 26 weeks, which comes to the total that you've read. The purpose of this position is really to assist the police department and also give it a trial run to see how it works. Again, the select board was interested in funding this type of position for both the police department and fire department, but chose that they'd wish to start with the police department and see how it goes, number of hours a week, workload, and so forth.
Great, thank you. And this motion under Article 16 will also require a two-thirds vote Tuesday evening. Article 17, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $15,000 to the short-term disability insurance line. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
So this Article 2 would create a new line item for the first time, and for the purpose of this, it's for the short-term disability insurance. The Select Board have had numerous board meetings in the past, and they've been televised with the Personnel Board and so forth, and they've discussed the short-term disability that the town currently has. We have a self-funded policy, which once someone has been employed by the town for a period of time and worked a number of hours, they are entitled to 26 weeks at 75% pay. The concern is that it opens the town up to quite a bit of liability, and oftentimes we see that the expenses continue to rise each year where, just happens to be the luck of it, and people need this policy, and the town is looking towards, or the Select Board and the Personnel Board are looking towards keeping this policy, but simply finding another way to fund it. By funding it on an outside source, the outside company would be the ones to administer, review, and manage the policy, as opposed to the Select Board being in charge of managing an insurance policy.
Okay, thank you. And the motion under Article 17 will also require a two-thirds vote Tuesday evening at our special town meeting. Article 18, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $6,800 for consulting services related to the HVAC system for library procurement process. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
Around FY15's annual town meeting, the town voted to support an article from the Capital Improvement Committee in the amount of $47,000 for the library to pursue a new HVAC system that encompassed numerous parts. Pursuing such an endeavor uncovered the fact that there was a need for a consultant to provide plans, drafts, and so forth of what actually needed to occur with these HVAC controls and so forth. The library entered into an agreement with a consulting firm, which happened to be Robert Hall Consulting. I was looking the wrong direction here. When they did so, the cost that they had incurred was $6,800. Taking that from the original amount that they were budgeted, the $47,000, would incur or cause them to have a hardship with being able to fund any of the project that they were originally budgeted for. So the town is the Select Board, Capital Improvement, and the library are all asking that the town consider funding the $6,800 as an unexpected cost from the operating stabilization.
Okay, thank you. The motion under Article 18 will also require a two-thirds vote at our special town meeting Tuesday. Article 19, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $77.48 to pay prior year bills from FY16 to Ben Meadows for disposable gloves. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you? Sorry I was late.
Sorry to add $77,000 to this.
That's okay, I think Randall would have a heart attack if it was $77,000. Yeah, this is for the...
Vicki
highway
Morrow, our town
Oh,
accountant.
sorry, Vicki Morrow, town accountant. Randall came to me after my deadline of accepting prior year bills in order to put them in the books for 16. There was a little confusion mixed up with Ben Meadows for these disposable gloves, but in hindsight, he'll use them anyway, so we have to pay the $77.48.
Thank you. And this will require a 9/10 vote
That's a priority.
Tuesday evening at our special town meeting. Article 20, transfer operating stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $7,834.34 to pay prior year bills from FY16 to MHQ for cruiser accessories. Said sum shall be taken from the operating stabilization.
It's actually just one bill. When the original appropriation was made and voted on for the cruiser for FY16, it was in the amount of $44,463, I believe, which wasn't going to be the entire, which wasn't going to cover the entire cost of the cruiser to outfit it with the laptop, the cameras, and all the accessories, the light bars, and all that needs to be included. We had a purchase order in the system for the cruiser accessories, and Mike Goyette, the chief, and I both called the company and asked them, can you send us a bill? You know, we have a purchase order, we have a quote. They didn't have any invoice to send us. They said we did not owe them any money. So I closed out the purchase order, and he spent some extra money in there for the laptop and the camera. And so when we went to buy the new cruiser for 17, they said, oh, by the way, we still have this bill from November of 2015 that you owe us the money. And so, you know, we spent some of that money on some of those accessories that weren't necessarily in the original appropriation. So in speaking with MHQ again, they took full responsibility for not being able to give us the information when we requested it. They were in between moving computer softwares, and so when we called and said, can you send us an invoice, and they said, well, we don't have one, you don't owe us anything, they kind of stumbled across it later on. So the entire bill came to like $10,000 and some change, but because there's money left, which we didn't spend from that original cruiser appropriation, this $7,800 is the balance of what's in there. And so, you know, they understand that it has to get approved at town meeting first before they can get paid, but they took full responsibility for not giving us information. And I can't pay a bill if I don't get an invoice, so
Right.
kind of was stuck.
Right. Thank you. This also requires a 9/10 vote, motion under Article 20 at Tuesday's special town meeting. Article 21, transfer capital stabilization. Move the town vote to transfer the sum of $20,000 to purchase HVAC system for library. Said sum shall be taken from capital stabilization.
So going back to what we had spoke about earlier, the library was originally funded in the amount of $47,000 for the HVAC project. Assuming that since we're on Article 21, we'll know what the verdict of the previous article was, and to assume for this moment that it passes, so it makes it easier on this article for my discussion point or information piece. So assuming that that piece passed and the consulting fees were taken out, when you add the $47,000 and you throw in another $20,000 from capital, you're up to $67,000. We just got bids in this week, and we'd like to move forward with being able to purchase the base piece, which is the HVAC controls, which is a little bit under the $40,000, or $47,000, and then we'd also like to be able to add the next component of the project, which is the AC unit. These two items together do not comprise the entire project in its entirety, but that may have something to do with over the past 2 years, the quotes we were getting ranged from $47,000 to $70,000 to our actual bids being $100,000. So the funding, the approval rather of the $20,000 amount from capital stabilization to the HVAC system for the library would allow us to move forward again with the HVAC controls and the AC unit. And unfortunately, that will take out pretty much the remaining funding that is left in capital stabilization at this point.
Thank you. That motion on Article 21 requires a two-thirds vote. Can we revisit Article 5? Because we didn't really, thank you.
Oh, would you like me to? I know you had read the other one.
We
Okay.
left it at section XL,
Okay.
which we believe is 40. So, yeah, if you could.
Okay, so this is a two-page bylaw. This is something a lot of communities have to decriminalize certain things and make it a lot easier for regular citations to actually be handed out. So for instance, currently, for a dog violation, the police can't simply issue a fine, have a person come in and pay it. It's more so they issue the citation, they file it in criminal court, and then the whole process begins. This allows the town to take many of its bylaws and say, okay, so we have a fine that's attached or a fee that's attached when you violate it. Here's the fine, go see the town clerk, pay the fine, and everything finishes up. You still have the option that you can proceed to the criminal court system if we need to, but the primary method would be more focused on the non-criminal disposition of the violation of the bylaws. On page 2 of the bylaws that were handed out and that are part of the packet, I had gone through every single one of the town's bylaws that we currently have in the general bylaws, pulled any of them that have a fine or citation or fee associated with them, pull them out, so those ones are all listed here with the enforcement of who enforces each and the fine, and that is the bylaw in its entirety. Again, because it's a general bylaw, it does not get approved instantaneously. If the town meeting chooses to approve the bylaw, it then has to get approved by the AG's office before it becomes effective.
Thank you. And thank you, Heather and Virginia and Vicki. Any questions? Come right up.
What is the difference? Oh, Convy
Come right up to the podium.
Convy Jonathan Judd Circle. How do you differentiate, what makes the difference between a 9/10 vote and a 2/3 vote? What-
It's a law of the Commonwealth, and 9/10 applies to any invoice that hasn't been paid in the last fiscal year that was submitted. So that's not arbitrary, but good question. That's why. The meeting will be Tuesday. We go from 7 until it's over, or 7 to 10. It can go a second evening. Somebody can ask for information that may not be present Tuesday that you feel is very important. Every citizen has a right to vote yea or nay or amend any article, motion under the article. And all the buses are lined up, so if you're all leaving this evening, make sure you find your right bus to go home. Thank you, everyone. See you Tuesday night.